39.
Number 1.
39.
1.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30.
29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11.
10. 9. 8.
7. 6. 5.
4.
3.
2.
1. It's time for mouthwash. Giddy up. Hi, and welcome to the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics. And this is going to be an interesting show. It's going to be like the Brady Bunch tonight. We got so many people backstage here. We're just going to be like Jan, Marsha, Greg. Oh, yeah, we do have a Greg. We have a new guy, Greg Merriweather. I'm excited to hear what he's got to say on our show. He's going to be a panel tonight. And we've got a little mix up here. Jordan's internet is down. But thank goodness we have Tiffany. Tiffany was just going to pop in and let us know about her campaign, but well, since she's here, we'll just put her on the panel tonight. And obviously we have Lucy. Lucy never misses unless she's driving her car across the southern Indiana. Sometimes she's with that and lightning chasing her and everything else, but she's here. And then we have a couple guests tonight. We have actually a Marie from the Indiana First Audit. And you're probably thinking, well, what's that? Well, we're going to find out. And then she has her sidekick, Eric, who cannot say his last name or show his face because his employer may or may not like his political views. So he likes his job. He's got a family to take care of, so he doesn't want to jeopardize that. But I think you'll find it interesting, some of the things we talk about tonight, because we're going to talk about how the election works and what kind of number. It's going to be a numbers thing. So if you're a numbers geek out there, if you like graphs and charts and whatnot, we have that tonight. So without any more talking, because I'm good at talking, that's why it's a talk show. I'm going to go ahead and bring on Marie, and then we'll have Eric. He'll be in voice only. So if you hear this voice in the background, that is not God. That is just Eric. So Marie, you've been recorded on our show before, and it's probably been about a year. But here you are live. How are you doing tonight?
We are doing great. Very, very encouraged. You got municipal elections going on. It's a great time to come on and talk to you. How's Lisa doing? How is her race going?
She's doing good. She just sent in a campaign finance form and all that. And I'm just sitting back going, I remember doing that. This is a lot easier watching. So voice in the background, Eric, where are you? Oh, I got to add him to the stream.
There he
That's
is.
my fault. There he is.
There you go. I think I'm in, right? There we go.
Yes. So, how are you doing, Eric?
I'm just, doing good, working a lot. I think you mentioned that a little bit earlier. I like my job. But a lot of this that we're talking about tonight is really apolitical. It's not necessarily favoring one side or the other, right? But it's good to talk about it, good to get people aware of it, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, great. Yeah, and I'm excited to hear about it. I'm not a biggie detailing guy. I just want fair elections. I want every vote to count and every count to vote, or whatever that is saying. So, hey, let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and bring on the panel. We're going to bring on our newcomer. We're going to bring on Greg Merriweather. Let's bring Greg on here. There you go. Wait a second. I got to change the format around here a little bit because we have this thing called the hot seat, and Greg, you're on it. So, Mr. Merriweather, how are you doing this evening? And what brings you to the Mouthwash Talk Show?
Oh, man. I'm doing okay. What brings me to the show, you quite naturally, but always,
You'll hate me later.
always good to hear when John calls you. It's time to roll. So you might end up on a hot seat, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, well, but we won't leave you out there long. We'll bring Tiffany on now. So Tiffany is here. So there you go. Now you're off of the hot seat. And
Thank
so
you.
Tiffany, it's been like a month and a lot of shows you've not been on. And so tonight worked out well. You'll be able to stick around. We were just going to have you come on and talk about your campaign. Give us a 1-minute rundown of how your campaign's going, because we don't have all night to talk about just you.
Of course, I completely understand. Everything's going well. I'm uncontested in the primary. I bumped into somebody last week, and they said I voted for you with an absentee ballot. So officially, I've won. I'm uncontested in the primary, but I'm spending this time connecting with voters, knocking on doors, raising money, getting my name out there and my signs out there. I'm a challenger. I'm new on the ballot, but I want to do everything that I can so that voters know who I am up in Fishers.
All right, that's great. I just want to do a public service announcement. One of our viewers that is generally on Facebook has not been behaving, so now they are watching from YouTube because they are kicked off of Facebook. So, but that's a reminder to our viewers. We are on Twitter Live right now. We're on Twitter Live, we're on YouTube Live, and we're on Facebook Live. And then next Monday, this show will air on Channel 40 as a recorded 30-minute broadcast. So if you say something smart on here, I'll keep it. If you say something dumb, it goes out. So,
well, I'm done.
Pressure off of our new people. So let's bring on Lucy, put her on the hot seat, and there we go. And then Marie, don't get too comfortable there because you're going on the hot seat next. Lucy, how are you?
I set the seat on fire.
Get it.
You see the flames licking up the bricks? I know I've got to go find a different background picture.
You need fire.
I do.
It's just another brick in the wall. So, hopefully you got all those 10 kids running in a straight line right now, right?
No, they were doing yard work today. Today was yard work day.
You got a small army. You need a couple yards with that many kids. So, all right. So guess what, Marie? You're out on the hot seat now. And we're gonna get it started here with I will tell you what, let's go ahead and do a presentation on that first slide that you gave me. Is that what you want to talk about first?
That'd be awesome. We'll let Eric handle the slides. He is a great.
Okay, so you're on the hot seat. Eric got the questions. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, look, nobody's on the hot seat now. So Eric, can you run through this for us? And exactly what the heck are we looking at? It looks like the Dow Jones stock market.
Well, I mean, it's a little too, that might be a little bit too consistent to be the Dow Jones, I guess, with how volatile things have been lately. But I'll try to make this really simple, short and sweet. So what you're looking at is a chart that has, 3 lines on it, right? And the black line is the estimated population from the 2020 census. The red line is the number of voters. And the blue line, the actual sharp blue line, is the number of ballots that were cast in the last election, in the 2020 election. Okay, so we are looking at 2020 here. And across the bottom, what you see is age groups. It starts at 18 years of age and it goes all the way to 100. So there are 83 age groups that are analyzed. So 1 year per age group is kind of the way this works. And then on the left side is either population, registered voter count, or ballot count. So one of the things that jumps off the page at people right off the bat is that there are more registered voters than there are estimated people based on the census. And while that is an estimate, what this does represent is there is the possibility that there are more people on the voter rolls than there are actual people that live in the county. This is Boone County that you're looking at here. But really, the thing that we want to draw attention to is what really appears to be some type of control mechanism, because there's a sharp blue line behind that very faint blue line that you can see. But one of the things that you'll notice is that faint blue line overlaps that sharp blue line almost perfectly. And that faint blue line is the number of ballots that would exist at each age group if you ran it based on Johnson County's participation percentages at every age group. not one age group, not 5, not 10, 83 unique age groups, right? So again, 18 to 100 years of age, right? And what you look at is over there on the right-hand side, there is an R score. If anybody's familiar with, if we remember statistics, I don't really remember statistics very much back in my day, but that is a 0.997 R score. 1 is perfect, and that's a correlation coefficient. It means when one number goes up, another number goes up. When a number goes down, the number also goes down, right? It's perfection. This is almost as close to perfect as you get. And I want to repeat that. If we did this analysis from Johnson County, which is actually the county that we did our analysis from, and you said, here are the number of ballots from 18-year-olds, so people who were 18 years of age at the time of election, and how many registered voters there were that were 18 years old at the time of the election, that gives you a percentage of participation of 18-year-olds. And then you do that for 19-year-olds, and you do that for 20-year-olds, and you do it all the way till 100, right? And if you take that participation percentage and you multiply it by Boone County's registered voters at each age group, you can see how close those two results are to each other. Essentially, Johnson County or any county in this state can model another county's election results. Now, this does not look at Republican or Democrat. It simply looks at how many people are voting. But what's important to remember is Boone County and Johnson County are not the same counties. There are different amounts of populations. There are different demographics. What this model says, and this model holds true for all 92 counties in this state, is that it does not matter whether it's a Republican county, a Democrat county, a small county, a big county, a college county, a county without a college, rural, urban. It does not matter. What this says is that every county is the same, right? And if you really want to get into some funky numbers, and I don't want to get too detailed into this, but I mentioned a little bit earlier that there are more registered voters on the rolls than there are estimated population for that county, right? And Boone County is not the worst, actually. There are 7 counties in this state that actually have over 100% voter registration rates, which means you know that at least that percentage, it's over 100, are illegitimate voters. They can't exist, right? Right. But the model holds true for them too. Which, again, if we say that everybody's the same, and let's say that all humans are the same, right? The model would only hold true in cases where there's less than 100% of registered voters to population, right? But that's not necessarily the case here. What this says is that it is perfect, and it's perfect for every county. Marion County, Hamilton County, it does not matter. St. Joseph County, Tippecanoe, whatever you want to say, they're all the same, right? And so I'm happy to answer any questions or get into further detail, but I wanted to give a very brief 5-minute summary of what this means.
Okay, now did you want to look at one of the other slides
please.
on there? Okay, so this is one here. This is a Johnson County.
This is actually the county that we did the modeling off of.
So this and that are really close.
Very close, actually. Yeah.
And then, now this is
a 4-election overlay. Yeah. So is there the third slide that actually shows them lined up, Marie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there we go.
So go back to the second slide if you wouldn't mind for me, because I just want to quickly go through that. Go back to the previous slide. Okay. So what this does is this looks at election results from all of the general elections that there is good data in the statewide voter registration system, otherwise known as the SVRS, because we only have it going back to about 2008. Before 2004, there are only less than 60,000 records that are digitized. Okay, so we can only see the last 4 general elections. But what you notice is that when you look at voters just at the age they were when they're voted, you can start to see a pattern emerging, particularly when you get up to around 67 years of age, right? You start to see from 2008, you see this tranche of voters just kind of getting older with how many ballots are coming in, right? I don't know if everybody can see that, but if you look up at around 67 to 70, you can start to see the same graph that's emerging, this sharp down line with a sharp up line. And they look almost identical. They just kind of look adjusted to the left. Well, let's go ahead and go to the next slide, right? These already look very similar, by the way, but this even shows it better.
Yeah, this was the first time in our journey together as a team that I cried when our analyst showed us this. Yeah.
So what this represents is this represents the age adjustment. So there is, if you notice, the blue line, which is the 2008 line, starts at 30 years of age. And it actually really starts with birth year, okay? Because we now aligned these graphs, these results, based on birth year, which means as you look straight up vertically, you are looking at the same tranche of voters instead of having to look at them horizontally. But one of the things that you notice immediately is the 2008 and 2012 elections are basically mirror images of each other in Johnson County. And by the way, it's like this in every other county that we've looked at. This is not unique. This is what we see. But then you notice something very, very interesting about 2016. You notice this massive increase in participation in younger voters in particular. But what's even more interesting is look at how consistent that line is upwards. There is a consistent gain of voters throughout all of those age groups that like magically weren't there in 2008 and 2012, right? The youth voter that really should have come out for Obama, and they did in droves. I'm not saying that he wasn't a popular candidate, very popular candidate. But 2016 with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in this state, and look at how many more people showed up to vote. But in particular, look at how consistent the increase is. Apart from the fact that there's 4 years of voters who were actually 18 years of age for the first time to 22 years of age that wouldn't have gotten to vote in a general election before that time, everything else is consistently increasing. And you'll also notice that that graph converges very hard with voters that are age 65 plus, right? Over 65, it looks like the same graph. But prior to to 65 years of age, people that are younger, there's this massive increase in voting, and it's perfect. It's too perfect.
Eric, you want to talk about why that is, what our supposition is?
Yeah, so again, you see it in 2020 as well. Again, what's really important to highlight is how perfect that is. The one thing that is, I think I'll put it to the panel. What do you think the difference is? What materially changed in our elections between 2012 and 2016? I'm curious to know if anybody has a guess.
All right, open it up for guessing.
I'll guess electronic voting machines made by Diebold.
Somewhat. That electronic is correct. Voting machines have been around for a long time, since around 2004.
Yeah, Rakita
yep.
wrote this in.
Anybody else want to guess real quick?
Marie, you could guess. We'll let you.
E-poll books?
E-poll books are right.
E-poll books. Okay, what's that for us dumb, uneducated people? What's that?
If you voted in this state prior to 2012, when you went in you actually had an assigned polling location. Number one, you could only go to one place to vote, and when you went to vote, you had a paper poll book where they checked you in, and you voted. But basically around 2014, we saw this massive increase in electronic poll book usage, almost across the entire state. In fact, now there isn't a single county that doesn't have e-poll books in this state. Now, why is that, you might ask? What does an e-poll book do, and why are they necessary? In this state, prior to 2012, we did not have a county with a voting center in it, meaning that you couldn't show up anywhere in your county at any voting location and vote. Now, as a matter of convenience, if we want to call it that, there are voting centers in the vast majority of counties in the state, which means, hey, there's a place at the municipal complex, there is a voting location at a high school, and in your county, you can go anywhere and cast a ballot, right? Now, why do you need e-poll books to do that? Well, if you don't have an assigned voting location and you can go anywhere, it theoretically means if you have a paper poll book and they're not like walkie-talking to each other saying, please check this person off of this poll book, they need real-time information to prevent you from voting twice. They have to know who has and hasn't voted. Now, this is a problem that I believe is a self-fulfilling prophecy, because who has access to know who has and hasn't voted? Do you think it's just the county clerks and the poll workers of each polling location? It's not. Both, actually, all political parties have immediate access to that data. The Secretary of State has access to it. All county locations have access to it. It is a real time system.
Slide your ID through, and in real time, they know you're there. The vendors,
It's like buying something at the 7-Eleven.
Vendors.
Sure, and you can say, I mean, if we're not going to act like, or pretend that we're all not criminals, right? That's not a bad thing in theory, except remember what I just said about those the increase in participation in voting, especially at the younger age. If you remember that first slide, there was this massive, what we call credit line of available voters in between the amount of registered voters and the amount of voters that actually cast ballots, right? Where if you wanted to cheat, where would you do it? Would you do it over there with the 60 plus where there's maybe 50 voters? Or would you do it over here in the 18 to 40-year-olds where there's thousands, right? And when we talk about an e-poll book, yeah, it's important to know who hasn't voted, because if nobody's doing anything wrong, we shouldn't have people trying to go vote twice. And I understand that. But what that also tells you is it gives you a real-time data on who hasn't voted. And also, when you look at the SVRS, right, it's not about who's voted, it's who hasn't voted. The SVRS, going back to 2008, gives anybody who wants it your voting history, right? You got to pay money to get it, but you have, for your primaries, did you pull Republican ballots or did you pull Democrat ballots, right? In your generals, it obviously doesn't tell you which way you voted, but it does show you, do you have a tendency to participate in general elections, in midterm elections, in municipal elections? That thing has all of the information on you. And now, if I'm a criminal and I'm trying to figure out how to pull off an election where I don't actually have to go resonate with my voters like Tiffany's trying to do, right? More power to her. Very much credit to doing that. We've actually had a lot of people in my area that come out and door knock, which is great. I love to see it. But in theory, you have a real-time mechanism to know who hasn't voted, and you know who has a propensity to not vote, and you can just assign ballots if you want to in real time. And so I don't want to get too much further into it, because I can definitely I'm very passionate about this subject, and I can talk way more than I need to. But I'm here for any questions.
Yeah, you're very knowledgeable of this, and I think if we went any further, YouTube, we would definitely be off of YouTube, because I'm getting strikes about that. All I got to do is mention the vaccine, and then we're done. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to go ahead. There's a lot of questions in there. So, Greg, you're the new guy. I want to have you ask a question about anything your little heart desires about the election and this process. Because, I mean, I've actually counted absentee ballots. I know a little bit how this works. But I'll tell you what, that's a lot of numbers for at 9 o'clock at night for me. I'm telling you.
It was totally a lot of numbers for 9 o'clock at night. I would know it's good. My question is, when it's all said and done, and this information, Eric, and when I look at it, my question is, who else knows it, and how do they benefit?
Well, obviously, all the political parties are aware of it. I think really the more important question there, Greg, and it's a great question, because this is a question we get posed a lot. Usually what comes with that question is prove it, which is kind of hard to do. But I really want to ask you all. I mean, obviously, John just talked about counting absentee ballots, which is very interesting, because the only audits that get done in this state are on absentee ballots, because they're the only ones that have paper. And that's an interesting conversation we can get into. But it is a lot of numbers, and the real question that probably should be asked is maybe not necessarily who stands to benefit from it, but do you think it's possible that outcome is done with ordinary human behavior, right?
It's too perfect.
do you think that that type of outcome, regardless of the outcome of the election itself, but when it comes down to the participation, because we're all told that these systems are safe and secure, and that is the biggest bunch of baloney that I can actually, I can't say what I want to say about that. But the real interesting question that comes out of it is, if these things are safe and secure, how is that possible if it's just humans in their nature participating? And I don't think that question can be answered.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have 104% or 101% of people voting of the 100%, that's an automatic red flag. I guess I want Lucy to ask, definitely Tiffany and Lucy to ask a question, but I'm like, this is, it just really, it casts a lot of doubt on the system. I mean, when you put those graphs up there and it shows that they're just sort of correlate right along almost 100%. I mean, I guess people don't change their mind. You could say, oh, people never change their mind. I've changed my mind before, so I know that others can.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah, come on in, Lucy, because
I
want the devil's advocate.
Now, I'm going to put out there right now that everybody knows that I am an investigative journalist. I always uncover the facts behind what others would call conspiracy theories. But I want to put something forward that is unique to Indiana and 6 or 7 other states, and that is straight party ticket voting. So I think what you may be seeing here is a perfect correlation, because people tend to be generally lazy. They don't do their own research. And in Indiana, they don't split their votes. And so if you're seeing perfect correlation, I think the real proof in the pudding is going to be when we have elections this next year and we see the large number of people that drop dead of myocarditis or nanographene oxide. So, we're going to have a higher than average death rate due to some government interference. And I'd like to see if, especially with the older voters, that would have been more likely to have been murdered by their own government in collusion with pharmaceutical companies, if that data will be markedly different from, the 18 to 35-year-old set. But I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to say, for the sake of this argument, that it's just lazy voters in Hoosier land because we have straight party ticket voting.
Yeah, well, and one of the things is,
if you don't mind, John, I'd like to just address that.
Go ahead. Yes, definitely.
And I agree with you that straight party voting is a problem, but I would disagree with you that explains what we are seeing. And the reason why is because what this says is that it does not matter which way you vote. It's that you have the same propensity to show up and cast a ballot or mail in a ballot or participate in the election. It does not matter which political party that you belong to, right? Or that you tend to vote for. This is just strictly participation. Now, we have not actually gotten into the very interesting analysis about the trends between mail-in balloting and in-person balloting. I don't think that Marie would have provided that slide here today. I'm not sure that she was asked to do that. But what I can tell you is that if we brought that up, it blows your mind.
You just anticipated my next question. How did I set you up for that so perfectly? Because that was my next question is, obviously it's a lot easier to fraud if you have a number of people that, can just mail in a ballot.
Sure. And there are definitely, what I would say is that, again, I go back to the results that you see, which again are strictly participation results. Is it possible in 92 counties that they all magically have the same participation rate at every single age group? 83 different age groups in every single county from 18 to 100. And do you think that is possible to do even with massive mail-in ballot harvesting schemes, if you want to call it that? That means that humans are perfect.
Yeah, well, we know that's not true. But that the other thing is that's lazy cheating right there. They're not even mixing it up a little bit. They're just saying, hey, let's just crank it out. So Tiffany, you've been very, very patient here, and we've to get to your question on this. and this is going to affect you in your little primary, except that you don't have a challenger. But it's going to be pretty bad if you get beat without a challenger because of that 101% of the people that voted took you out. So, what concerns you about this process? And be careful because you could be an elected official someday.
Right. So I'm taking it all in, obviously, trying to digest it. But when I was looking at the chart by the year that people were born, I was born in 73, and I noticed that, like, I'm like, maybe my people are showing up. Maybe like Gen X, maybe people get to a certain age where they decide that that they want to vote and participate. But when you look at how each line is perfect like that, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like your generation.
We're just
you guys are really mad. You're either mad or happy or something about voting because you're out there.
I think we realize it's funny. I think we see it a lot with our school board races, how, like, we're Gen X. Our teachers were gods. They taught us the right stuff. They kept their opinions out of it. We got education. We took driver's ed in high school. And then we see what's going on with our children. And we're like, whoa, like, what are you doing? Like, that's not history. You don't spell it like that. That's not real math. When are you taking driver's ed? What? They don't teach it. And then all of a sudden we get riled up because, like, our kids aren't getting what we got. Now we got to get involved. It's kind of like when your mom's on the couch and she's comfy, and then all of a sudden she's like, don't make me get up. And then she has to get up and she has to put on her jacket and her scarf on her head and shoes. And then she's got to find the car keys in her purse. And then you're like, I'm in so much trouble because she had to get up. But so I think the data is interesting. I don't think it should be so perfect. It reminds me of the church that I go to, and you can find it online. Our bookkeeper stole $1,000 a week for $1,000 a week for 10 years.
Oh my gosh, that's a heck of a.
And it's funny. We sat on parish council, and every year our money per month looked just like that chart.
Oh, bless your heart.
Every year, that the same inflection points every year.
Well, I would encourage, hey, John, I would encourage all your viewers. I know for me, because I was not a data person at all, and it took me a little bit to understand exactly what it was that I was seeing. So we have our IndianaFirstAction.com with all the videos on there, or you can go to Rumble and search Indiana First Action. And our chief data analyst just breaks it all down into a way that's, Eric did a phenomenal job. But if you want a 15-minute kind of to soak all that in, he goes through a lot more of what are we truly seeing. That's saying that the same amount of Marion County 18-year-olds love to fish, the exact same proportion as 18-year-olds down in Brown County like to fish, right? It's just, it's unbelievable. So I would encourage your viewers.
Well,
I know it's a lot.
I think one of the things is, you guys have been going around and trying to audit things. You've been looking for this data. Why can't this process be auditable? It seems like you start talking about, hey, let me see what your records are. Let me see this. And everybody's like,
correct. We have FOIA'd over 1,000 FOIA requests at this juncture. And guess how many we have received back?
That'd be goose egg, probably.
25. That's it.
25. So
a quarter of a percent. I would just like to advocate here for the libertarian position, because our last Secretary of State candidate, Jeff, did a great job. And you know what he said? He said, you should be getting a receipt. You go to an ATM, you get a receipt.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody should have a paper receipt. It should be on the blockchain and trackable and immutable, an immutable receipt.
Yeah.
So I hear you, and I definitely agree, Miss Lucy, on the receipt part. And that is big. Our biggest push is that these machines buy the contracts that these sweet clerks are signing. They don't understand that these vendors are hiding behind IP clauses. You cannot open up those stinking black boxes. You can't. So you can't audit them, right? And if violations are found, there's no accountability, and there have been violations, and nothing happens. And so you just go through the cycle, and it's just consistent. So one of the things that we're really pushing for, there's one of me in every state, and my sweetheart friend in Missouri just got some hand counties to go back to paper ballots with hand counting, and they just did their first election. Excuse my dog. He's seeing something over there.
Everybody wants to be on the show tonight.
They do. And so they were super excited to do this. R's and D's coming together, had the ballots hand counted, and went out for a beer afterwards, right? And they just had a blast doing it, because we don't get to engage in that process anymore. They've taken that from us. The only thing we want between us as a voter and our ballot is a pin. That's it. So we are beginning a hand counting model. And the clerks and the election boards could go back to hand counting tomorrow for sure.
Yeah. So, and that does beg the question of, does our society just want the answer so fast now? Is this like voting for American Idol? I mean, I want to know by 8 o'clock so I can go to sleep.
Well, that's a really great point that you made, John, because when we go to meet with our senators and our reps, the senator actually told us that he prides himself, and the state prides themselves on being number 2 out of 50 to report. And I said, sir, I don't care about speed. I want correctness. These are hackable machines. Your fridges are being hacked. The Department of Defense was just hacked. The Keystone Pipeline, everything is hackable. I want them correct, not fast. That's a really good
point.
And
it's just such an interesting thing. So I'm going to go up the panel here. We're going to go Lucy, Greg, and Tiffany. I'm just going to ask a simple question: paper ballots, yes or no? Lucy.
Paper ballots, absolutely 100% yes.
All right, Greg.
Yes.
Tiffany.
I really wish there was some way we could use technology, but if it's not secure, then we probably need to either paper or putting your finger in the ink. I mean,
oh, that's a good one. I would have a purple finger.
Yeah,
a purple thumb or whatever. But but I'll tell you, one of the problems with that would be
wait. There's so much more that has to happen for that to happen. I mean, like, businesses need to close on election day. Children need to be out of school. People need to volunteer to work at the polling locations. There's a lot that has to happen for us to change the way that we're doing things. I mean, we're begging people to come and work, so people can come vote. I mean, there's a lot of issues with the system.
Yeah, and they're and the Republican Party's trying to get rid of PCs and those precinct committeemen that used to do stuff. Now they don't really. There's nothing to do.
I did want to say to
Hamilton County.
I did want to say, and I totally respect that, the precincts are only to be statutorily, from what I recall, and I could be wrong, won't be the first time today, 2,000 voters or less, right? So we could totally count 2,000 voters that night. And my dream, my Christmas list would be to take the day off for a national holiday. That'll never happen. But I just find it ironic, Tiffany, because a lot of our team went and called our county chairs and, oh my goodness, we want to come and just be a poll worker. And we were turned down. We already got enough.
Don't you? Yeah. Well, do you have to live in what are the roles for being poll workers? Do you have to live in the county, live in the precinct?
I don't even.
Well, I don't know about.
I don't think that's even. You just sign up and they put you on there. I mean, I don't think there's really. You don't have to live in the precinct or whatever.
It's at the county level.
It's a county level, a county thing. So.
But when they're turning away workers, that's one thing I was like, So, because we do hear that all the time, Tiffany, from the sweet clerks around the state. Well, gosh, send your people. And so we've been really, that's why we're Indiana First Action.
First Action. And how long have you been doing this, Marie?
Oh my goodness, since July of 21. And I got to tell you a funny story. So my hubby's like, I wonder how much would that have cost the state for your team? to do this, right? So we, just for giggles, I have 10 co-leads with us. And so we put a very generic, a $50 per hour, like attorneys are 300, but we just put 50. Do you know that we have given over $1 million of our time, $1 million from 10 people since July of 21. I have not worked in all that time. And then the whole team of the canvassers and the people going to be poll workers and going to election board meetings is up to 4 million. And our team is so proud of that for free. We're just brothers, sisters, citizens joining together to find the truth.
There's one thing you all did was where you actually went out and did surveys after, and then basically were you able to chase those votes to say you went to Bill Smith's house and you asked him if he votes? He says, "Oh, I didn't vote." Well, when you go to the voter rolls, oh, mysteriously he voted. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think I recall you were talking about that.
Yes, we did. We went out and canvassed 6 counties. The reason for that is everything we do is evidentiary. So, I mean, this would all stand up in a court, right? And so we had this controlled manipulation, all those graphs and charts. I was like, that is incredible. But I want something to overlay that to say, is this truly possible? Or was this just, And so we went and we did Hamilton and Boone and Allen and Dearborn and Lake and Johnson. And oh my goodness, Johnson was the worst. They had an 80% anomaly rating team. That is almost every house. There was a boo-boo with their vote history. So you would see how many people live at the residence, because per our Constitution, the state laws, you have to live there 30 days before, right? You go to vote. And so we would have that, and we would go to the door, and all of our trained canvassers had a very specific script saying, so I see that you have 8 registered voters at your home. Congratulations. So how many voted in this election? They'd be like, 8. Well, there's only 2 of us that live here, right? So you would see phantoms and ghosts, and it goes back to that over-registration that we talked about before.
The chair
Harrison,
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Andrew Harrison, he ran for county clerk, and he had 12 people registered under his name.
Yes.
But I do one point of interest for the show here. Penny Bigelow, she has caught me telling a lie, just not telling the truth. They're trying to get ours are trying to get rid of ward chairs, not PCs. So there you go. I'm rarely right.
Hi, Penny.
But I'm rarely right, but usually they don't catch me. So they got me this one. So
can we address moving MLK Day to the day of the general election? No. How about President's Day? I mean, pick another.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I love it. I love it.
Like,
excellent idea.
That would be a real way to honor him.
Vote day.
Amen. Amen, Lucy.
Right. Yeah, and how hard would it be if it's so important? It just seems like they want to condense this into basically from 4 to 6 p.m. after work. You got to scramble there, or you got to get up super early and go in to vote if you want to go in person. And I like to go in person. I've never mailed anything in. I like to go in there and push buttons and curtains and all that. I like to see what's behind the wizard. So, Greg, are you
John? Real quick, can I address something that you just said? Because it's not about getting there before or after work. We have election season in this state. We have early voting that starts at, Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 28 days before election days. Certain, especially voting centers, are open for people to go vote. Now, I think that one of the wish lists that we have is one day, that's it. Because in my opinion, if you give actors now who have real-time data of who has and hasn't voted, and you give them 28 days to figure it out, that's a lot of time to dial in your numbers.
Figure it out, won't
right?
they?
Yeah. Now, machines can do this in a split second. So I'm not trying to sit here but I think that at a large scale, I don't think that manipulation happens over 28 days. But I certainly do think at the municipal level, at the school board level, where you're starting to talk about very small tranches of voters, even down to very small precincts, in order to try and cover for that level of manipulation, you need some time. And so just with the way the numbers work out, like if you actually look at numbers and you look at how this would be accomplished, again, how can this be accomplished with humans is one thing that really, it's just not possible when you look at it. But yeah, I wanted to address that. We give people 28 days heads up here. And that's one of the reasons I think, Tiffany, you mentioned we struggle to get people to vote or to show up and work. We did have people show up and try and ask to get become poll workers for their, especially the Republican Party, but even some Democrats, and they were turned away. But also, it's also harder to get people to show up for 28 days to work polls instead of one, right? And that's another thought. Again, everything that we get told is that this is a matter of convenience. We need to make it convenient to vote.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, no, that convenience comes with a cost,
You
right?
got that. Yes.
So speaking of voting, I'm going to go from Tiffany down this time. How have you ever done a mail-in vote, Tiffany?
So sorry, when I was in the military, in the 2000 election, I was a absentee ballot in Florida.
Okay. Mr. Merriweather, have you ever mailed in a ballot?
I have not.
You have
I was
not?
overseas, and they collected ballots, and it was in a trash bag in Florida. My vote counted.
Okay. Lucy, how about you? Have you ever mailed anything in?
I've never mailed in a vote, but I've voted absentee because when you're one of the candidates, you need to go vote ahead of time, and
okay.
Or you can do the vote at your precinct and make a like a media thing about it. So I've done the absentee voting thing, and when I worked the polls, it was really important that I be able to vote absentee.
Amen.
How about you, Marie? Have you mailed in a ballot before? No. How about you, Eric?
Never mail in, and I have done the same thing that Lucy did, voted early, which means you're actually technically absentee.
Yeah, that's what they say. I can't remember if I've done. It's like I think there were some years when I was younger I didn't vote. Maybe that's bad, but I got older, I voted. Is there? Raise your hand if you've missed an election.
That was on their chart with the age groups. Maybe people. At what age do people wake up and decide to vote, Marie? Is it 30, 32?
It seems like it's 60-year-olds based on the chart. One of the things that if you think about these charts, think about the level of behavior change that has to happen, especially with what we all of a sudden magically got 18-year-olds to really care about politics and elections. I do know that things are getting more divisive, but at this level, that many people. And that perfect across all those age groups, which just happen to have the biggest differential between the amount of registered voters and previous participation. That's nuts.
So, quick question: can you go back to that chart? Is that like raw data, or is it manipulated in any way? Is it smooth, or is it refined, or anything?
No, that's
straight from the SVRS.
Yeah, from the Secretary of State's SVRS, yes.
So if you look at the other chart, if you could, John, if you can go back to that second chart on the right, go 2 slides over if you don't mind. This chart is the same data that you looked at the previous chart. The only thing we did was for the 2008 18-year-olds, when they voted in 2008 at 18 years old, by the time they're getting to the 2020 election, they're 30. So we moved each of those elections over by 12, 8, and 4 years respectively, so that this is that birth year chart where you're just kind of, when you look straight up, you're kind of looking at the same tranche of voters that were born in those years. It's just too perfect.
Look at those R factors: 0.981, 0.997, 0.962. It's crazy.
So just to clarify on those R factors, normal human behavior, when you look at when Six Sigma, when engineers are looking at modeling for normal human behavior, anything above 0.6 is considered awesome. Normal human behavior is typically below 0.6, right? So above 0.6, you're looking at some sort of either data manipulation or behavioral manipulation, right? And those are way too high. And I do want to feed Lucy, the investigative journalist, conspiracy theorist, if you don't mind, for a quick second. And also, it was something that Tiffany touched on. Tiffany, you mentioned in one of your comments that, hey, I'd love to use technology if it can be demonstrated that it's secure. And one of the things that we've heard, in particular since 2020, but even going back to 2016, when the results were not favorable to a certain group, a certain political party, everybody was complaining about machines at that time and manipulation in elections and Russia and whatever else you want to call it. But one of the things that you hear when you start to question this is, well, these are secure. They don't connect to the internet. These are secure. They're air gapped, right? And those are technological terms to try and say that nobody can access this machine remotely. But on the conspiracy side, look at the certification protocol for the machines in this state. If you look, there's an organization called VSTOP. It's the Voting Technology or Voting System Technology. There's two other words there that I can't remember. Yep, but they do the testing and certification of machines in this state. And in their certification protocol, there is a verbatim quote that says, "Does this system connect to the internet via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or cellular?" The follow-up question to that is, if yes, are these functions disabled? Now, I want to understand if these things aren't supposed to connect to the internet because they're supposed to be secure, right? Why would you ever let a machine that has the capability of connecting to the internet be certified, right? Why would you even leave that as an opportunity, right? Because laws aren't for ordinary law-abiding people. They're because criminals have a tendency to not follow the rules, right? But the one of the things that leads into that is there was actually testimony from the February of 2021 meeting that occurred for the state's. God, Marie, the name of the organization. Yeah, no, well, it was the election. It's the Indiana Election Division. They have basically quarterly meetings. Okay, so if you go and you look at the transcript from the February 2021 meeting, which was done virtually because of COVID at the time, but they had a representative from ES&S on. His name was Mark Manganaro. And this individual is, very high up. I think it was a VP at ES&S, which is the manufacturer out of Omaha, Nebraska. And he was asked some very pointed questions, not from Republicans, mind you, by one of the Democrat-appointed members of the Indiana Election Division. There are 4. There's 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Now, Anthony Long was his name, and he asked this Mark Manganaro some very pointed questions about connectivity to the internet. And apart from the absolute word salad that came out of this man's mouth, was an answer that said, yes, these machines are capable of being connected to the internet, and essentially any competent IT administrator or technician that works for the county can enable these functions, right? So this goes back to that certification protocol. Yeah, if they're disabled, that's good enough. Well, no. If you're, because here's the thing that the electronic access, the internet access really brings into play, is if you don't have e-poll books and you don't have any way to manipulate election results from a long way away, call it another country, across the pond, I don't care. That means that somebody in that county is having to commit a lot of felonies, right? If there's no ability to access these machines, then you've got to be requesting absentee ballots en masse and filling them out and forging signatures. Okay, well, all those things are felonies, right? But when you can connect
from the parking
the parking lot, or from China, or from Iran, or hey, Iran actually cut in on the SolarWinds hack. Connie Lawson in this state said that CISA was able to how many times, over 1,000 times, access our statewide voter registration system?
50,000.
Okay, sorry, my bad. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But it means that somebody from a long way away can actually get in here and mess with some stuff. And as a voter in your county, don't you want to be able to hold somebody accountable if this is your vote, this is your right, this is what the founders talked about with their sacred honor that they put out there, right? And whether we disagree with someone's politics, I think we all want integrity. We all want the results to be right. So I would encourage you, Lucy, to actually look into some of that stuff, and we'd be happy to share some material with you. But there's some very interesting things that start to pop up when you start digging and asking questions, and things don't start to make they start to make sense as far as why 900 plus FOIAs get rejected or not answered. And it starts to make sense when you start to have people say, "Nope, safe and secure," and don't ask me about it. That's it's a very interesting
there's lots of times our government says safe and secure or safe and effective.
Oh yeah.
And everything's always the opposite, right? The Patriot Act was unpatriotic, and the TikTok Act is, I don't think the words TikTok were even in there.
Yeah, they were. Well, I'll tell you, we could do like 3 more hours of this.
Yeah, I know.
My
This
head would
is a lot.
explode
I
because
know.
all these numbers and whatnot. But I agree. I mean, I think that I think everyone wants to be able to have a fair shot at this thing. And, there's definitely, stuff swirling around here about distrust. And is this getting counted? Is that getting counted? And, I guess if you're on the good side of this, if you're on the side that they cheat for you on, you're all for it. But if you're on the other side, it's not so hot. So, yeah, so we appreciate y'all coming on. We're going to do the conspiracy theory next, and I know you don't want to be near that because you guys are doing important work, and we're being sort of silly.
So
wait,
I have just one final question. So,
questions.
what do you want folks to do? What's the solution? What's the go forward message?
The go forward message is same day voting. We want paper ballots hand counted. If you are interested in election integrity, please come join our group. Go to indianafirstaction.com. You can contact me through there. There are so many teams. Like, remember I told you the 4 million that we've put in? Well, those were man hours. So we need people who can dissect contracts. We have people that can call their legislative officials. I want everyone signing up to be poll workers and poll watchers. If you know Miss Tiffany, she can have you be a poll watcher on her behalf. But we have to be engaged, and we can no longer sit on the couch. We can't. It's over. We have got to get activated, and we're just seeking the truth, Tiff. So thank you so much for that. But definitely to equip yourself and to be able to speak intelligently to elected officials, you need to really dissect some of our Rumble videos or contact.
I'm going to do something. We have the magic 8 ball here, and this is a very good predictor. So I'm going to ask the question of, will we have a fair election come this November? Or wait, let's do 2024. We're not going to do this, Minette. We're going to go for the big time. Let's see what it says here. It says
magic.
Hold on. I got to get my glasses on. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this.
It
says most likely we will have a fair election 2024yor. So, and it's going to be because
I put as much faith in that 8 ball as I do our electronic machines.
I can predict who's going to win. This thing's missed a couple Colts games, so I wouldn't put a lot of faith in it, but we did that.
If I could just make a 30-second recommendation too, because Tiffany, you asked a great question. Even if you don't want to get involved at a group level, although I definitely suggest people doing that, just showing up to your county meetings, your commissioner meetings, and have the contract in your hands and start making your elected officials answer questions. Why would you sign this? Right? I know there's a certain group that loves to say democracy dies in darkness, but truthfully, our rights die in darkness. And if we don't get out there and start asking questions, difficult questions, mind you, none of this is going to be fun, but we need to get out there, start going to our county meetings, and start holding our elected officials accountable. And just listen, they're not going to want, if people start to show up in mass, just 100, right? That changes the game. It doesn't take a lot. It just means people need to get up off the couch. And even if you don't want to work in a group or be affiliated, just showing up to your meetings, school board meetings, whatever, right? We can all get involved that way. So that's another suggestion too.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Hey, Greg or Lucy, you got one final question or anything there? Or you good? Good. Okay.
I have a final question. My final question is, when you think about the average person, the average voter, we're not data analysts.
Right.
Are there any triggers? Are there any red flags that the average voter would be able to say, you know what? I think that might be voter fraud.
Not without the data behind it, sister. Even objecting, unless you hear someone in front of you voting that is a dead person's name that used to be your neighbor. Do you have a better answer, Eric? That's a great question.
The only thing I, as an unsophisticated, member of the citizenry, could see is, you get 101%. Clearly, there's some sort of fraud going on, fraud or mistake.
Yeah, and again, you got to see the data on that. But I would just say that, again, people just getting involved and getting familiar with the process. You're even just participating in poll working, poll watching. The more eyes on it, the more we're going to be able to pick it up. And remember, this entire state uses very sophisticated, if you want to call it that, technology, right? So unfortunately, the data and the sophistication is kind of built into this process, and that's why it's important to look at. But canvassing, going out, getting, now it's several $1,000s to buy the statewide voting registration system roll, right? But just getting out and knocking on doors and saying, you've got 12 people showed up here, registered at this address. No, we have 2. What's interesting about that is when you go to the clerk, they say we can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah,
and
purging the voter rolls there's just laws and rules that just make it foggy.
They get sued, Tiffany, the minute that you try to say this person doesn't live here. There are all kinds of groups. I mean, this state several years ago, they got sued by Tom Fitton's group, which we actually happen to agree with, to clean up the voter rolls. Well, they mailed out postcards that said, please return this if this person no longer lives here so we can remove them from the roll. And you see this drop in the voter rolls. And then like 2 months later, the voter rolls are right back up where they were prior to being sued.
And
when these clerks try to go clean them, you have every nonprofit, 501c3, whatever you want to call them, showing up and suing to try and get people to keep the rolls where they are. And we don't want to disenfranchise anybody from voting. That's not the purpose of this. But what in the world is a good reason to not keep voter rolls clean and then think that there are entities out there that are suing the clerks to keep them filthy, right? And that's just sad.
Yeah, it's almost like raise your hand if you're not here. So
yeah,
that's the voter rolls we have.
And I'm probably wrong. So the average American doesn't vote. And I guess in a presidential election, maybe 40% of Americans vote? Is that
maybe
high?
40, yeah.
So 40% vote, but our voter rolls, there's a lot. So based on this data, there's a lot of people on our voter rolls. 40% vote. So of the 40% that vote, are they like real people, or are they?
This is where This is where the rubber meets the road, and we start. That's kind of that prove it question almost. I know that you're not asking it in that way, but we get asked this all the time. And then when you try to open up the hood, you get roadblocks everywhere, or you get sued, right? And Marie's canvassing, the canvas teams did actually find voters that said, I was out of the country. We did not get an absentee ballot, but somebody cast a ballot in their name. We also have voters in that canvassing where they said, I did go vote. And the statewide voter registration system says, no, you didn't. And even people that said they voted day of, checked in on a poll book. And we're being, the statewide voter registration system says they didn't do it. It's very difficult to do that for over 1 million people in this state, right?
The check and balance and would be like after an election, like you just print a list. It's like who made the cheerleading team?
An audit. An audit would great.
The cheerleading team.
So these people voted. And then it'd be like, oh yeah, I made the team, or like, oh no, I didn't. But you know what I'm saying? You would, if you voted, your name would be on the list. So I get what you're saying. I guess at least whoever's pulling the strings, it doesn't look like every American's voting. I guess that would be too much, huh?
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we're going to go to the conspiracy theory, and our guests are going to bid us adieu. Eric, very good. Marie,
thank you guys.
Good. I think we need to have you on after you get some more results from maybe this election. One election stat that I'd like to throw out there: in 2018, the midterms here in Indianapolis, Marion County, there was 80,000 more voters than there were in 2022. So that's quite a big drop in voters from midterms. Is that from people moving out, which I don't know so much, or is it just people that have given up? That's the question you have there. So with that being said,
part of that is Andre Carson gets lots and lots of votes every time. I mean, like his.
What are you trying to say, Tiffany? What are you trying to say?
I say that more and more people enjoy voting for him. Lots.
Okay, a lot of them. Okay, well, save that because we got the conspiracy kit theory. Oh, Greg, I forgot to warn you about this, but you'll see it, and you just okay. Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Eric.
Bye, guys.
We'll be checking back in with you. It's been a very interesting show. We had quite a few viewers and quite a few questions. So get out there and help with your polls. Democrat, Libertarian, Republican, Independent, go help. So here you go. Thanks for coming on, and let's get to the conspiracy theory.
Hey, y'all, better get your tinfoil hats out. It's time for the conspiracy theory. Come on now, let's go.
Okay, let's see here. Let's do it this way. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Greg, you don't have to have a hat because we didn't tell you about it. So you get a pass. So this time you get a pass, but if you can fashion one up. Ed used to put a gum wrapper on his head. That was
just keep in mind that without your protective cover on, the aliens can beam directly into your brain.
The rays will come in and they will affect you. Like you'll be just as kooky as we are on this show if you stay long enough. So yeah. So let me this part of the show. Hold on. Let me put the banner up here that shows that this will keep us from getting sued, Greg, right here. We put this for entertainment purposes. So whatever you say may or may not be used against you in the court of law. So we're gonna start with Tiffany tonight, so Greg can get an idea of what a conspirafact looks like. So she doesn't do conspiracies; she does facts. So Lucy, pave the way for us.
Do you want Lucy to pave the way or Tiffany?
Oh, Lucy, yeah, Lucy. We know.
And I got excited.
Yeah, you're making Tiffany go first.
Lucy's going first. We want Greg to see how the master does it. Yeah, I know.
First, mine is
you can help Greg with his hat because yours is fabulous.
Okay, so
asked this question. He sounded like Ed. He's like, "Well, what I'm wondering, what I'm thinking." It was very.
don't make fun of Greg on the first night. You're just a guest host too.
It was soothing.
Yeah. Okay. Good. We'll take that as a compliment. Okay, Lucy, go ahead. You got the floor.
Since spring has sprung and people are putting their crops into the ground, I'd like to talk about geoengineering, also known as chemtrails. So you can go to geoengineeringwatch.org. They've got lots and lots of great information, and it is a fact. It's talked about by all kinds of international people that. Bill Gates, by the way, Bill Gates is funding this, that they are literally trying to block the sun. It's called stratosphere atmosphere injection. I can't remember what the acronym is, but they are putting aluminum particles, apparently a couple of other chemicals, I don't remember, like strontium or barium or something, and injecting those into the upper atmosphere to reflect back the sun. They've been doing this in mass since 1971. So for Tiffany and I was born in 71, we've never seen normal skies. Now, of course, John's a little bit older. So when you were a young child, John, you could have looked up and seen a natural sky without a lot of geoengineering. In fact, I'm trying to remember the name of the leader. Was it Syria or Iran accused the U.S. of acting in concert with Europe to engineer the weather to create droughts?
Oh, yeah. I remember it well. I was about 7 when it was going on. Yeah.
So that is the conspirafact. I always like to give people hope on, what you can do to combat this. So what I would recommend that you do is, first of all, if you have the opportunity to grow crops, which, I've got my big garden. One of the things that I plan on doing this year is actually getting like some PVC pipes or some electrical conduit and bending it and then getting some plastic to put over it so that when the geoengineering goes across, hopefully I can keep it from dropping directly onto my crops. That's number one. Number two, and this is another whole thing, which I won't get into tonight because it'd be another hour discussion, is the idea of organite. Orgonite, which you probably never heard of. Orgonite is when you take metal shavings, crystals wrapped in copper sometimes. You put them in a mold, most commonly a pyramid or a puck-shaped mold, and then you pour acrylic on them. As the acrylic dries, as the resin dries, it actually puts force and shrinks around the crystals and the metal, creating piezoelectricity. So go to Organized Earth or The Organized Earth on Facebook. They have some really beautiful pieces that you can buy. The reason I'm mentioning this is because I had a friend, he's now passed, but he used to sell these orgone pieces, these orgone generators, prana life force energy generators, but he would take a 5-gallon Home Depot or Lowe's bucket and fill it up with stuff. So he'd pour some resin in, put in some shavings and some quartz crystals and pour some more stuff in, and he called them chem busters. And he said that the energy field created by this huge chunk of orgone would actually go high into the sky and dissipate those chemtrails. So you've heard it first. You can get a better yield on your vegetable garden this year and foil the plot of Bill Gates.
Yeah, well, I look at the positives here. We don't have to wear as much sunscreen. I mean, that's positive.
Wait
right?
a second. How long have you been a white man? Don't you know that you get more sunburn on a cloudy day?
Apparently, I'm not a very good white man. I didn't
Especially
know that.
being a brick. No, what probably it is that because of your vocation being out in the sun for so long, you've just developed resistance to it, or you're eating a lot of high anthocyanins, like
Oh yeah, eat them all the
berries
time.
and
I put milk and
blackberries.
sugar on them. Eat them in the morning.
That's probably the
I
best.
eat them all the time. All right, Tiffany.
There you go. Set it up.
That one made my head hurt thinking about it. I mean, it's probably from I'm glad I got this to keep the orgones off of my head or whatever. So what do you got?
So there's so many things. Lucy's talking about energy. It makes me really happy to know that that people of African American origin have vibranium in them. So maybe that will help us as chemtrails happen and things like that. Just knowing that we all have just a couple of drops of vibranium, that's always good to know. You know, I got nothing. It's like the only thing I can tell you, I still got no Bigfoot. I mean, like nothing's changed. And so, Greg, my story is that I'm hopelessly single. I have a better chance of finding Bigfoot than I do finding a boyfriend. So
yeah, it's been
I cannot find Bigfoot. So,
yeah. She had him trapped in the basement. She lured him in with cookies. She's done everything. And this Bigfoot can be purchased on a gas station on 74 on the way to Cincinnati. I had to take that picture. I started to buy it for Tiffany, but it was like $300. I'm like, dang, Tiffany, you ain't worth all that. What's that?
Tell me I'm worth it.
No, you're worth it, but man, that thing wasn't going to fit in the Prius. It has sunk it over like Fred Flintstone to that big old rib he bought at the flipped over the car. It's been terrible. So, Greg, since we just flipped this on you, you're probably thinking this may be Greg's last show tonight because he says I can't be on here with these crazy people. I can't do it. So, there's got to be a conspiracy theory that you have had lingering or you've always wondered about. You say, I just want to get it out. I just want to get it out there.
If I had to pick, it would be, does baldness really come from your mother's side of the family? but no,
I can tell you how to fix it herbally.
Can you?
Yeah, no, seriously.
Chia pet.
My mom is not bald. My mom is over 70 and she's still not bald. So I'm trying to
if you're a male, you need stinging nettle and you need saw palmetto.
It's
all about DHT. Yeah.
So I'll work on that, and maybe next week I'll have a head full of hair.
I don't know. I think bald looks good on you.
Okay, I'll keep it that way.
So the vibranium thing on it, just like
the vibranium thing, exactly.
We got good looking people on this show. That's this is TV, it's not radio. Okay, this isn't WIBC. Those people have to be on the radio. I mean, we're good looking here. We can be on here. So my conspiracy is, I want to ask you a question. When do you think Title IX? Are you familiar with Title IX? You ladies ought to be familiar with that. What year do you think Title IX actually started? What year?
92.
83.
78.
72. Nixon did it. 1972. That's 50 years, Tiffany. We've had Title IX. And, here's a fun fact for you. See, Ball State, I went to Ball State, ran on the men's track team, but Title IX came in, and the women's team is still there, but we don't have a men's team because we weren't protected by any titles. We weren't protected by 8, 7, 6, 15, 22, but Title IX is there. So that worked. But Title IX is not just women in sports. It's minority sports. It can be anybody on that line. But I looked that up. I'm like, I thought the same thing about what probably Tiffany, who said 82? I thought 82. I thought that's about what it was because I remember it being a big deal because they started giving scholarships for women athletes at Ball State before they hadn't. You just like, if you ladies want to run, then come on. But so 50 years we've been doing this. Now, my conspiracy, now this is going to be controversial, and luckily this isn't going on Channel 4 because they don't like you to even say the word transgender. But my conspiracy is that this transgender thing is going to sort of ruin Title IX. I mean, that's a conspiracy. I know it's way out there, but I'm thinking that's probably what I'm in. Let's do the Magic 8 Ball one more time to see if that's a true statement. Let's see.
I mean, so what
it says
ban Title IX to have like a whole group of athletes?
What's that? It says you may rely on it. So the Magic 8 Ball never lies. All right. So Greg survived the first show. He knows what it's like. He will have a tinfoil hat next week. We do have Kim Boyd coming on. She is, Kim, right, Greg? Kim Boyd?
I do.
Lucy, Kim? She's been a advocate for homeless, for people here on the sort of northwest side for a lot of years. I've been on committees, and
nice.
She's going to be interesting. Now she's running city county council against Maggie Lewis. That's going to be something interesting. But hey, you know how we are. If you ask to be on the show, I'll work it out for you. So Kim is brave enough to come on here, and we'll see how that goes. We'll have all your city county council questions ready for that. And then, hey, this just in, February. That would be April 25th. We have Jefferson Shreve coming on. Oh, you can get your questions ready for him. And we'll see what happens if he can stand the juggernaut. Look at Lucy. She's already like, I warned him, Lucy. I said, hey, Jefferson, Lucy's going to probably tear you up. But
it might be an interesting show.
Yeah, it might be. I want to get an extra pack of gum for this one. And Tiffany, unless Jordan's internet doesn't come on, that would be your so Tuesday night, election night, you could come back on because we have so many, there's no many days to the election. So
you're welcoming me back.
Well,
she may be too busy partying over her
Jordan's
win.
not going to be happy with it. So, on stuff.
But you not be happy?
Jordan, he's done a good job filling in for you. He's really, he picked up the ball and gives Lucy a hard time in a different way than you do. But he says, oh yeah, he was talking to me on the phone the other day. Yeah, I'm thinking of ways to get Lucy. I'm just kind of.
You better bring the data. That's all I got to say.
Bring a bucket of whips if you're going to beat Lucy.
I'm coming for you, Greg. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, So Greg,
is this going to be like that false Republican Democrat fight like they do in Congress, and then afterwards they all go out to dinner and plot against?
There you go.
Yeah, that's about how this is going to go. I don't think that none of us can be mean enough to do it. I mean, I don't know. One time, Greg, Lucy called Tiffany a not nice person name, and we thought we almost had to end that show early.
GOP shill.
Yeah, the shill. It wasn't like the other word you were thinking of, the other pronoun or whatever.
No, I don't use that word, not even for women that I.
No,
and obviously I love Tiffany, but there are like 3 women in the world that I actually detest. I know it's hard to think that but they're people like Hillary Clinton. They deserve.
Hey, maybe we could get her to come on the show.
No, I don't want to be part of the next body count. Thanks. My kids need me.
Yeah, really. I would be definitely.
And I'm not suicidal.
I would say the wrong thing and all that. So
I'm right-handed, so if I shoot myself in the back of the head while my hands are tied behind my back with my left hand, and there's no dirt on my shoes, and you find me in the middle of a park,
I'm glad I still got the
Hillary.
Conspiracy theory banner up
Vincent
there. So,
Foster.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I believe this is wrapped up. If you want to see this show edited down into something that's sensible and reasonable,
Go
tune in to
someplace else.
WHMB 40 next Monday at 9:30. And then, also we put this thing on a podcast at some point when me, the lazy producer, gets around to it. And it's, then you can just listen to it and not see all of our shenanigans in person. So let me get the banner off of here. And Tiffany is, Napoleon Dynamite up there in the corner. Everybody, let's see. Let's get here. Let's see if we got one last parting comment. Oh, here we go. It's perfect. Later, y'all. So there you go. Let me cue this thing up to send it home to Mother. And thanks for being on. And we'll see you next week, 9 o'clock, Tuesday night. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and let's say throw us off. Out.
Yeah.